Hi, and welcome to the Breakthrough Emotional Eating Podcast. My name is Kristen Jones, and thank you so much for joining me again this week. I say that every week, and truly, I do mean it. I'm really happy that you all have been able to either jump on live. We have some people live in the Breakthrough Emotional community. Thank you, those people who are joining me live in the group, and as well as if you're listening to this on recording. So happy. So appreciate you being here and appreciate you listening. Today we have, it's kind of like, it's always a special day when I get to interview somebody and I get to talk to somebody and it's not just me blathering on. I always love having my clients and guests and members come on and kind of share their experiences as well as it's so much. I think it's so much better for you to hear it. You can hear it from me all day long, but when you hear it from somebody else who's actually in the trenches doing the things and doing all the things, that just to me is just so much more special. And so today I have a very special guest. So Gina is live from Redding, California. In her, just gotten her hair done, and she looks amazing. And she has been so gracious to arrange her schedule to be able to chat with me. And actually, it is kind of cute because. I was asking Gina if she was someplace, safe with some good internet, and she says actually the internet in the city or in the town that she's in, because it's Redding's a pretty big city. It's a pretty big city, and that actual internet, because she lives up in the mountains, and so for those of you who live in mountains which are beautiful and wonderful and remote, but sometimes internet can be a little dicey. So it's perfect that she was able to arrange her day and be able to be with us today. So Gina, thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So what I would love for you to share with the listeners is and we had just been talking before we started recording that you've been in the group since September. So if you could kind of take us back to where you were before you kind of discovered the group, and kind of what you were looking for when you came into the group, and then kind of what you found when you came into the group.
Okay, well, when I first came into the group, like I was telling Kristen that I was at my rock bottom, and I was a mess. I didn't know where to start. I'm having issues in my marriage, having issues with my mental health, having issues with my weight. My stomach was. I was always so full, but I was still hungry, and I didn't know where to begin. I was crying, and I just didn't know what to do. So I knew I had an eating problem. Um, I've done so many diets. I've done Phentermine pills. I've done Weight Watchers. I've done Jenny Craig. I've done Slim Fast and Shakeology and all of this stuff. But it wasn't helping me because I don't know why. All I knew is that I felt like I was a weak person. I felt like I didn't have any motivation. I felt like a loser because I couldn't get my stuff together to lose weight. And um and that's scary. It's scary, especially when you're starting to have health issues because of your weight.
Mhm.
um so yeah, I was at my rock bottom. I was crying all the time and I just didn't know where to begin. And I had googled emotional eating, and Kristen's name came up and she had a Facebook page. So I went to the Facebook page and then I went to her website and I was like, you know what? She offers a free 15-minute phone call. I have nothing to lose.
Mhm.
And I called her, we set up an appointment, and it was on from there. The first day I talked to Chris, I just had a meltdown and she's like, no, we got this. She said, we got this.
Mhm.
And that's when I decided to invest in myself. And it was not easy. It's been hard.
Mhm.
So, I mean, just really getting to the core of why we're eating. And it's not
Right.
that we're weak minded. It's not that we don't have any willpower. It's just we have to retrain our brains to think why we're eating.
Mhm. Mhm. So what has been the most for you, what's been the most significant thing that you have learned about yourself as well as kind of your reactions to your environment and things like that? What has been the most important thing that you've learned?
The most important thing that I've learned is that I have a lot of emotional issues, and I was eating my emotions,
Mhm.
especially when my relationships, somewhere along the line, I marriage,
Oh,
and I was silent.
I think your microphone's getting covered.
Is that better?
That's better. Yep.
Okay. I lost my voice in my marriage, and I allowed things to happen, and I would eat my feelings, and I wouldn't speak up for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I learned that my emotions, why am I really eating? I'm not hungry. I'm like, how can I just be hungry? I just ate 15 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but that's our primal brains and our prefrontal cortex. And you'll learn all of this in the program. It's like you have to figure out, stop before you eat. Am I really hungry? What's going on in my mind that's making me want to eat?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the biggest realization, that now, like if I hungry, I'm like, why am I hungry? What's going on right now that I'm hungry? It can be something simple as, maybe you're feeling neglected by your husband, or your spouse, not just necessarily your husband. Maybe you're stressed out in this moment, and what's causing this stress. Sometimes you just have to take a step back and just, before you put anything in your mouth, ask yourself, why am I hungry?
Right, right.
That was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask everybody who's listening on the in the group, how many of you would you how it just I'm going to ask, if you are a person who you feel you react, and your eating oftentimes is a reaction to what's going on around you and not what's really happening inside your body. So if you are a person who you feel like, you know what Gina's saying, like, I'm reacting to everything around me and that's why I'm eating, it's not that I'm really that hungry, I just want you to write the word surroundings. Surroundings in the comment. Just write the word surroundings, that your surroundings are impacting your ability to decide whether or not if you're eating not because of being hungry, but you're eating because of what's happening around you. So just write the word surroundings, and then I'll know that we probably are on a good path here of recognizing that we oftentimes let what happens around us be the catalyst for our eating, and the reality is it has to be what's happening inside of us, and that directly ties to our brain and how our brain works. Gina, one of the things that you had mentioned, and again, you have done so much incredibly deep work on yourself these last 5 months, and what would you say when it comes to, I know you're really good about the planner and all that. What would you say when it comes to the daily planner and writing your meal plans down and all that kind of stuff? What do you think is the most important thing for you that has really changed your outlook and your feelings about yourself?
The biggest thing about the planners is not even just about planning your food. It's just giving yourself permission to eat what's on your planner. Like, for example, like I used to be a Pepsi holic. I would have a Pepsi every day, but now I have one once a week, maybe even once every 2 weeks. But I put it on my planner, and I tell my brain it's okay to have that, because we can't deprive of ourselves of the foods that we love, because we're just good. We're going to rebound.
Right.
Another thing about the planner, which I really had a hard time with, is the 3 things that I love about myself. Because for me, once I gained all this weight, I just didn't love myself anymore. I felt that I wasn't worthy. So once I started to put down what I love about myself, then I really started to love myself. And it wasn't like the superficial things, like, like at first I started putting like, oh, I love my hair, or, I love, the way I take care of my family. That's good stuff. But what do you love deep in yourself? I love my personality. I love that I'm a fighter. I love that I love life. I love that I'm willing to work on myself and recognize my shortcomings to be a better person. So like, that's the things that I had to dig deep about what I really loved about myself.
Right.
So that was the biggest thing, is I would sit there for like an hour thinking, what do I really love about myself? And now it's like, even with with the grateful parts, the things you're grateful for, like right now, I'll just be honest with you, ladies, my marriage is not 100% right now. And it hasn't been for years. And I used to put it on myself because I gained so much weight, and that's why I have marital problems. But that's not it. So I look at myself now, and I look at the 3 things that I'm grateful for. And you know what? I'm grateful that I have an amazing life. And even though my marriage isn't 100%, I still have a good life and I'm here and I'm
Hmm. Yeah.
standing and I'm fighting and I'm fighting for myself. And
Right.
you can't do this for anybody else but yourself
Hmm.
because it's not going to work. You have to just feel it in your heart and your soul that you want this.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
just look deep inside because I mean a lot of people, it can be superficial for the as far as losing the weight, but you start loving yourself. That's what I had to do because I didn't love myself.
Right, right. So tell us, because I know there's been some exciting movement for you. So tell everybody what has recently happened for you.
Okay, so I did Jumpstart 3 times, ladies, and I'm a slow learner. I did Jumpstart 3 times because I I got it, and it's a work in progress. Your mind is a work in progress. You're always working to better yourself. And so it took me 3 times for it to sink in.
Mhm.
Um, so the whole time, probably in the last 5, I can never get down under 215 pounds.
Mhm.
So I'm now I've lost 6 pounds. I'm at 214, and I've lost 4 inches off my waist.
Mhm. Mhm.
So and that's really exciting. My husband actually said he's noticed, and he's like, "What are you doing?" He thought I was on diet pills. I was like, "Nope, been there, done that. It didn't work," and I spent thousands of dollars on them.
Right.
So so yeah, so I lost 4 inches off my waist. I have a lot of energy, um, and I feel good. I feel excited about life again.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. That to me is that's what's really exciting, and
And
we've noticed, and I know that you're putting in work all the time. You're always really being very conscious and being very aware of how important you are in your own life and how you matter and that you want to be happy.
yeah, and if I could say something else, Kristen, it's like, like when I first started Jumpstart, I'm like, okay, well, Jumpstart starts Monday. I'm gonna go get candy and ice cream, and I'm gonna eat my McDonald's and all this other stuff. And I totally did a binge. I mean, I would binge eat so bad. I went to the hospital because I binged and my stomach hurt so bad.
Hmm.
And at that point, I was like, I cannot do this ever again.
Hmm.
So that the key is, it's like you don't have to clear your pantry out of all of your stuff. You can eat whatever you want, but you have to eat just until you're sated.
Hmm.
Drink your water because there's so much salt in the food around us that we retain.
Hmm.
And I've noticed that if I eat something salty, the next day I'm up 2 pounds. I'm like, well, I didn't really eat much, but it was salty. So drinking that water is number one for me.
Right.
It was starting that.
Hmm.
But like you don't have to give up the pastas, and if you want a cookie, have a cookie.
Hmm.
But you don't have to eat like the whole pack,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And another thing too was like, with my childhood issues where, we didn't have a lot of food.
Hmm.
So I didn't know if I was hungry or if it was mental.
Hmm.
So, and I learned that it was mental. I really
Right.
wasn't hungry. I'm not going to die. I'm 200 pounds. Like, I can live probably a couple weeks without eating.
Well, and I think that that's another thing is that we've really that you have, and that's part of what we do in the Jumpstart is also look at like how are our beliefs from our past or the childhood experiences that we've had, how are those still playing out, and how are those um, kind of reliving themselves in our present, and if it's not working for us, what do we need to do to leave those things in the past and decide to move forward with different thoughts and different beliefs about ourselves.
Yeah. Um, Another thing too, Kristen, that I wanted to point out is too is, we're all women and we're all, you know, part of my emotional eating too was just the lack of intimacy with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
So one time, remember, I think I told you about that. I was
Hmm.
like, God, I want to eat. Why do I want to eat? So I want to eat now. What's going on with me? And I was just like, oh, I'm craving intimacy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was just like, oh, that is such a realization.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah.
absolutely. So this plays right. So as you know, thank you, Gina. That was everything. I just loved everything you said, and it's so in line with what we're talking about today. Because one of the things that and Gina and I were talking about this beforehand, and that's when she mentioned about having a Pepsi, and it's like Yeah, you can have a Pepsi. You can, you write on your meal plan, you have that, you plan it, you're good. And so one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, which I think is so important because I've seen so much conversation. I think this is just such a hot topic, is like, well, what are you supposed to eat to lose weight? Because we all in our minds, I think everybody who is in this group, I think all of you have the badge that says I'm a professional dieter, because I know I do. And so we all have that badge. We all know that we have those things going on, and that we are professional dieters and we do all these things, and that the bottom line is the secret to losing weight and keeping it off is not dieting, is giving up dieting and eating what you love. And so we're going to talk about that today. So the first and foremost thing, the most important thing is that, and it's for those people, and some of you have watched it, some of you haven't seen it, but there is a video that I have out that is all about, like, that we don't diet in this group. So this is not a diet program. It is a coaching program, because I coach a lot, predominantly on your thoughts, your beliefs about yourself, your feelings, and what we do with those feelings. And Gina said it so beautifully when she talked about eating her feelings, because that is what most people do. Most people are eating their feelings, and they're not even consciously aware of it. They're not even aware that it's going on. They can't figure out, like, why can I in the morning decide that I'm going to eat really well, and then my boss says something to me and suddenly I'm knee deep in a bag of M&Ms. Why is that happening? Well, there's that connection between our emotions and how we don't want to deal with our emotions, or we don't want to deal with our feelings. And so instead we eat in replacement of that, and we eat to distract ourselves so we don't have to deal with those feelings. So the first thing we have to do is we have to kind of stop the dieting. And the reasoning behind that is that dieting is by nature sets up an artificial circumstance where you have a beginning and an end, and you are going to be a certain way in that time frame. And that's very, very limiting when it comes to, okay, I'm here, and when I get to the end and I reach my goal weight, then it's like, woohoo, gloves are off. I'm going to go back to eating exactly the way I ate before, which I'm sure everybody has the best of intentions of thinking, oh, I could do this for the rest of my life. Yeah, no, you can't. And nobody really wants to. I mean, there are very few people who really want to then live their lives, the rest of their lives, weighing and measuring and counting calories. And I have never wanted that for anyone. I did that for most of my life. And that was not how I wanted. I knew that wasn't working, and I knew I had to come up with another way. And I will tell you how this whole thing kind of came about for me. So diets also, and I think this is what's most damaging, is diets also set up restriction and deprivation. And so when we restrict and we deprive ourselves and we don't allow ourselves to have things, there is something that happens in our brain that is like, red flag, danger, Will Robinson, I've got to have more of this. And so it's like, this is the only way that I can equate it and get people to understand this. It's the idea of like the friend, or take yourself back to being like 15, and it's the friend or the new boyfriend that your parents hate. And you're like, he's a loser, but I totally want to go out with him now because my parents don't want me to. And that's exactly the way when we set up these, you can't have this, it makes you want it that much more. When all of a sudden, when the gloves come off and you get permission, then suddenly that person's not quite as exciting for you. And so it's the same idea. It's the same idea and the same concept with food. The other thing about diets is we start setting up labels and lists and food lists, and there's good food and there's bad food. And when we eat good food, we feel like we're good. And sometimes we feel like we're superior to other people because we're eating so healthy and we're eating so good. I totally have done that. And so, I'm eating so good. I'm such a good person because I'm doing that. Y'all, you could still be a bad person and eat well. Okay. That doesn't mean that's not who you are. Same way as if you eat bad food, then suddenly you're a bad person. And then suddenly that judgment, because you've judged the food, then if you eat the food, you're judging yourself and you become a bad person. And I hate to tell y'all, but you are not what you eat. You are, in theory, you are what you eat, but you're not what you eat. You are not good food, bad food. You're not good because you're eating good and bad because you're eating bad. We are way more than that. And so we all have to remember that. But again, diets set that up for us. We always have to remember that at our deepest level, we are all good people. everybody is a good person. Our behaviors are totally separate from who we are at our core. And I think that's always really, really important. Um, so the third thing that diets do, and this is like so, and I think most people, I think almost everybody in this group could probably understand this and relate to this at one time or another, is we go through a diet sets up a restrict binge cycle. And so you restrict, you go on a diet, you restrict what you eat, or you just decide I'm not eating at all. And then eventually you can do that for a few days, but then suddenly your body will not put up with it anymore. And then you're going to have a trigger. And a trigger is going to, it could be something somebody says, it could be something that you think about. And all of a sudden, you then are needing to relieve the anxiety that that trigger has caused. And that will cause the binge. And then the binge gives you a little bit of relief because it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this stuff anymore. Now I can just totally like go to a different place. So we go to that binge place, we binge, and then that sets up, it takes a little bit of the anxiety off, but it's very, very short-lived because then the guilt and shame come to the party. And then all of a sudden you're in that cycle back again where then you're like, I can't eat. I can't eat. I've done this. I can't eat. Now I have to restrict again. And the whole cycle starts all over again. So diets by nature set us up to do that. And again, it's not healthy. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for our bodies. It's not healthy for us psychologically and emotionally. And that to me is where the damage really comes. That's where it's most detrimental. So what do we, what do we now have to do? What do we have to do? What do you do to lose weight? So I've just like totally put the kibosh on dieting. So what do we do now? So the thing, and this is gonna, for many of you, if you're new to the group, you might be like, this girl's crazy. I don't know what she's talking about. And that's okay. I'm totally good with that. I've been called worse. But the idea is that you eat what you love. You eat what you love. And I don't want to say that and just make it so simplistic because as Gina said, there has been a lot of thought work, a lot of work that she's done on retraining her brain to think differently about herself, to feel differently about herself. So I'm not gonna just make it really simple, like, oh, you just can just turn this on, because will tell you a little story about how I tried to do that before I really did the thought work that I have done for myself and that I now teach other people how to do. But eating what you love is really the secret. Now, I'm going to just give you the second big secret. So you guys can't tell anybody because this is big. This is a big secret. You can't tell anybody. But here's the secret. It is not what you are eating. It's how much you're eating and why you're eating. That is what matters. What you're eating, I don't care, gluten-free, vegan, carbs. Yeah, Gina, do you eat carbs?
Heck yeah. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, I had a Burger King yesterday.
Right.
But I only had half because I ate till I was sated, not full,
right.
Sated.
Absolutely. So the idea is that we start to change the way we're looking at food. We change the way we're looking at our relationship with food and our relationship with ourselves. So how do we go about doing that? Or why does that work? So there are 3 really strong reasons why eating what you love really is the answer to losing weight and then keeping it off. The first one is it removes that deprivation, that piece of deprivation that we feel like we always are in when we go on a diet. So it removes that. It takes that longing, that boyfriend longing away. It takes that away, and then you are giving yourself permission to be able to, again, take care of yourself emotionally, but also being able to relax around food. Again, the restrictions are gone. You can relax around food. The biggest phrase and the thought for me that absolutely changed my life, and I, for the life of me, cannot remember where I heard this. I don't think I made it up myself, but I think that I must have heard it someplace. But the thing that is the most, that has done the most for me is the saying and the phrase, and I have to say it to myself all the time, is food is not going anywhere. I always have access to food. No one's going to take food away from me. I do not have to feel like I have to eat everything in front of me or everything in the cabinets right now because I feel like someone's going to take it from me and I'm not going to have enough and I'm going to be on the outside and I'm going to be without. We have to move away from that. There is an abundance of enough food for everyone. We have to remember that food's not going anywhere. We don't have to eat all of it. And that's huge. And that's where you then, when you are able to say, food's not going anywhere, I trust myself and I know that I can handle myself around food because I'm going to leave some here and I'm going to have it tomorrow. And it's going to be there and it can be there the next day and the next day and the next day. But taking away that like scarcity mindset is huge. So again, food's not going anywhere. That's what we need to tell ourselves. Second thing is, when we eat what we love, it makes it easier for you to stop eating. It makes it easier because you're not in that, what I like to call the Last Supper mentality, where you're thinking, this is, like Gina was saying, like, okay, it starts on Monday. Let's cram all the other stuff, let's eat everything we can because then we're going to go without forever. No, you're not going to go without forever. It's okay. The food is always going to be there. It's not going to be that tempting thing because you always know that you have access to it. And the cool part is that's when food starts to lose its power over you. And I know many of you feel like food controls you, and it's because you're not allowing food to be in your life, really allowing yourself to have food be in your life. And so and that's more of a psychological thing. That's where you have to come to that place of like, I've got to be able to do this and just relax and let food be food. So many of us treat food like it's our best friend, our counselor, a warm jacket, a blanket, a hug. That's not what food is. And we have to let food be food and not make it into something else that it isn't. And so again, it makes it easier to stop when you know that it's always going to be there and you always have access to it. Okay, so here is a perfect example of this. So I know you all have probably been in this situation at some point in your life. You go to coffee with a friend, and your friend's one of those people orders this amazing cinnamon roll. Sitting there, had this gorgeous cinnamon roll, and you're like, oh no, I'll have my black coffee, I'm fine. And you sit and you have your coffee, and she's like, here, do you want a bite of my cinnamon roll? And you're like, oh no, I couldn't, no, I don't want any. And all you can think about for the next 2 hours is that darn cinnamon roll that you said no to. And it keeps at you, and it keeps at you, and it keeps at you. And you get home, and then you're digging into the refrigerator eating baby carrots and hummus by the gallonful because you want to somehow make up for the fact that you denied yourself that bite of cinnamon roll. If you had just taken the bite of cinnamon roll, would have been done. Would have been done, would have been over. And you know what? It wouldn't have had to be done and over. You could have gotten yourself a cinnamon roll and had half of it then and half of it later, whatever. But when we do that sort of like, oh my gosh, this is it. I can't have anything. Again, that restriction and that denying, that takes us to that binge place. And then we eat way more calories trying to satisfy what we could have satisfied if we had just eaten the original thing and done it in a way that was mindful and that was in our best interest. So that's a huge one. And then the last thing is that it eliminates judgment about food. When we just get to eat anything, food is just food. That's it. It's not a good food. It's not a bad food. It doesn't have a label. There are no food groups. It's just food. And again, that takes the power away that we oftentimes hand over to food. So how do you actually go about doing this? Like, how do you make this happen in your everyday life? So I just said there were no food categories. I lied. There are two new categories, two new food categories that we all need to adopt. And that's foods you love and foods you love that maybe don't love you back. So again, foods you love that maybe don't love you back. And those foods that you don't love back doesn't mean you can't ever have them, but there are certain foods that you eat that you're like, I just don't feel very good afterwards. Or I have a tendency, I just don't feel good. I have a tendency to maybe like, I in my mind, I can't get myself to like, really be present with that food. So maybe that's a food that I maybe don't have or I have very frequently, but I always know that it's always available. It's always available to me. Any of those foods. So it's foods we love, foods that we love that don't love us back. If you're celiac, yeah, you're not eating bread. You don't do that because it doesn't love you back. You might love it, but it's not going to agree with you. So those are the two new categories. So now foods aren't off limits. Nothing ever is a done deal, never ever going to have it. There I hear so many people say, "Oh, I'm addicted to sugar. I want to give up sugar. I just need to eliminate it from my life." I say good luck to that, and I'm going to tell you that's not going to work. So we have to give ourselves, when we give ourselves permission, then the food becomes food and it doesn't take this monumental role in our lives. Second thing is we need to have a variety of foods that we love available to us. I'm going to ask you all in the group, how many of you, if you know what, well, no, I'm not going to say that. Tell me in the comments if you have a food that you are afraid to eat. Afraid to eat in a sense of it's a food that you feel like that is your kryptonite. Like for me, mayonnaise used to be my kryptonite. Mayonnaise is my best
Mayonnaise.
friend. Mayonnaise is my best friend now. But it used to be like I just like, oh, I can't because once I started eating mayonnaise, oh gosh, that everything got crazy. So, anybody in the group, do you have a food that you're still a little not sure, like, ooh, that's a little scary. I'm not sure if I can eat that. Because we want to make sure that we are giving ourselves, we don't have those kryptonite foods anymore. We allow ourselves, nothing is off limits. Everything is available to us, but we have to have the thought process and the understanding of how our brain works in order to support us as we're doing this. Um, so again, that's another thing. The last thing that you need to always do is when you are doing meal planning or when you are going to eat something, we all need to start being a little bit pickier about what we eat, because your body is really important to you and you need to treat it like the queen or the king that it is. Get your crown on, adjust your crown, and then make a decision about what do you truly want to eat. Don't bother with stuff that you don't want to eat. That doesn't work. You have to ask yourself, what do I truly want and how will eating it make me feel? What do I truly want and how will eating it make me feel? If you are eating something to make you feel good because something makes you feel bad, you got to rethink. Not saying you can't eat that, but you've got to be eating it for the right reasons, because that's why people have a tendency to eat past satisfied and eat more than they need, because food has become the hug. Food has become the intimacy. Food has become the best friend. Food can be food. It can't be those other things. And so we have to remember, we always have to keep that in mind, that we want to go into it eating foods for the right reasons. Eating what we truly want to eat, but also eating it for the right reasons in the right moment. So that is what we have there. That is this. Truthfully, and I know some of you are like, well, I thought she was going to tell us that we had to start measuring stuff and doing all these things, or they have to eat those acai. I don't even know how to say that acai bowls and all that stuff. No, none of that. What you need to do is you need to figure out what do you love, what do you love to eat that loves you back, and how can you eat it in a way that makes it just food, that doesn't make it an emotional replacement for something else. And one of the things, and I know Gina and I have talked about this, and I've talked about this with anybody that I work with. I am a firm believer that weight is a symptom of something else that's going on. And I think that most people, I'm going to say all people that I work with will agree with me that it usually, the weight is just one piece, but when we go deeper and we figure out what's really going on, that's when changes start happening. Gina, am I right?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Kristen was talking about how you eat the food that you want that make you feel good. And I'm going to be honest, when I say this, when I used to eat, I felt shameful.
Mm-hmm.
I felt shameful for eating because as big as I am, I should not be eating this.
Mm-hmm.
And but you have to get out of your head. Don't feel ashamed about eating the foods that you love. I
Mm-hmm.
used to go to the grocery store and buy the Haagen-Dazs ice creams and eat all three ice creams before I got home, so
Mm-hmm.
my husband didn't see me eat. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's okay, eat that ice cream, but you don't have to have all three of them in like
Right.
30 minutes. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing is like, sometimes doing that can make us feel ashamed of ourselves for what we do, but there's no shame in eating the foods that you love,
Mm-hmm.
and getting to that place.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for chiming in on that. I love that. All right, everyone. I hope this really answered some questions that people have been talking about. And if this is something that you're thinking like, huh, this is like something I've never heard before. This is not a way of going about losing weight that sounds anything like anything I've ever heard of. And you're intrigued, I will tell you that there are not very many people. There are a few of us, but there aren't very many people who are teaching people this aspect of how your brain works and feeling how you feel about yourself and how much that relates to why you are carrying around, if you're carrying around extra weight, why that's happening, or if you have a really difficult and tumultuous relationship with food, why that's happening. If you are feeling like, maybe this is that missing piece, because I know for many people, they come to this group and they realize like, okay, the dieting thing, like I can diet all day long, I just can't keep the weight off. So what's going on with that? Because I know those quick fixes are so tempting. They are so tempting to do because you get that instant gratification, that high of like, oh, I'm losing weight, this is so great. But then what's the end result is it ends up coming back, and then you end up feeling so much worse about yourself, because then there's the shame, and there's the guilt and the disappointment that you carry with you. That's not good for anyone, and that's not what I want for anybody. And so if this, everything we've talked about today, if that's intriguing for you, if it's intriguing for you, if you're in the group, if you're listening on the podcast, if you're listening on the podcast, you need to come find the group. It is Breakthrough Emotional Eating. We are at www.facebook.com/groups/food breakthrough. Come and join the group. It's an amazing, amazing group of women. I just can't be any happier with the members that we have and the support and the community that we've created. But if that is something that is intriguing to you and you want to hear more about it and you want to learn more about it, we have a monthly 21-day Breakthrough Jumpstart program that I run, starting on this Sunday. And as Gina said, she did it 3 times. She mastered it, and you know what? Everybody takes things at a different pace. And we just have we have such an amazing group of people who are doing it this month. We've had months in the past. And so if it's something that is of interest to you and you want to learn a little bit more about that, in the comments, if you're listening if you're listening on the podcast, you're listening in the group, and you want to, in the comments, put just the number 21, not the number 21, just drop the number 21, and I will reach out to you, and I'll just give you some information, and you get to make the decision as to whatever it is that you're looking for and whatever it is that you want. But there's also tons of free resources in the group, and those are always available to everyone as well. So again, thank you so much for being here. Gina, you're a rock star. Love having you. Thank you so much. And everybody in the group, if you have any questions, just let me know. Leave a comment, and I will reach out to you personally. So please, please, please have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. I wishing it was Thursday. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, and I will see you all in the group. Gina, don't go anywhere. All right, talk to y'all soon.